Welcome to the Lovestead.
Hello bookish friends, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. My name is Jessica and my pronouns are she, her. This is my mid-year book freakout tag. This tag is very popular on BookTube this time of year, so much so that I no longer know who created the original tag video. So if you know who that was, please leave that person's name in the comments below so we can give credit where credit is due. And then just a quick shout out to Cajun Peach for helping me name this plant that's always like reaching out for me in my videos. It's a Hoya, and so the name that they came up with was Grabby de la Hoya, and I absolutely love that. I love it so much. So welcome to Grabby. Question 1 is the best book you've read so far this year. I'm going to list a couple of books because that's what booktubers do. That's what her readers do. We can never pick just one, you know. So first we have Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is contemporary YA literature, and it's kind of a love story, kind of not, but it's about Georgia, and Georgia is like late high school, early college age, and she's figuring out her identity as an asexual person, and this book was just absolutely beautiful. It was my introduction into the world of Alice Oseman, and y'all, when I tell you that I ran out and bought all of Alice Oseman's other books after reading this, I don't think you'll be surprised because, I mean, BookTube loves Alice Oseman, and for good reason. Girlfriend lives up to the hype. Like, this was beautiful. Next is a nonfiction, and that is So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. I read this in February, and it was just so good. Like, it really helps me as someone who is working to be an anti-racist to do a better job at being an anti-racist, and it's a book that I refer back to. It's a book I encourage my students to read. It's a book I've encouraged all of my colleagues to read. It's just really good, especially if you're a white person and you want to know how to be better at anti-racist work. Definitely pick this one up. Ice Cold by Tess Gerritsen. For a while, this was sitting at the tippity top of my book of the year, and this is book, I think, 8 in the Rizzoli Isles series by Tess Gerritsen, and yes, that is a TV show, but it is based on this book series, and I haven't seen the show, but I've heard that the books are quite different. In this book, Maura, one of the main characters, is at a conference, like a medical conference, because she is a forensic pathologist, and she's at this conference and she's like going through kind of a breakup, and she meets up with one of her friends from med school, and he's like, hey, let's go skiing. On their way to the ski lodge, they take like this back route and they get stuck in a snowstorm in this abandoned village in Wyoming. And it's like a story of survival. It's a story of corrupt small towns. It's a story of corrupt big corporate business. Like, it is intense. It's a page turner. Like, this is a perfect thriller. I would not change a single thing about it. It's just perfection. My favorite book by one of my favorite authors. And then last for this question is actually a classic, Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I read this book for the first time this year, and I loved it so much. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but it is like a page-turning, dark and twisted story about a group of boys who is stranded on an island, and they're just trying to survive, and it's a really interesting study on human behavior, particularly within the realm of survival and like feral humanity. Absolutely loved it. It really surprised me too. This could probably be one that I'll answer again for the question about biggest surprise, but yeah, I just thought it was phenomenal, and I'm so glad that I read it as an adult, because as an adult I can appreciate certain nuances and symbols in there a lot better than I would have had I been forced to read it as a youngster. So, you know, if you haven't read this as an adult, give it a try. Pick it up again and see what you think about it as an adult with a different perspective and a different like cognitive ability to understand what you're reading. So those would be my top books of the year so far. So we've got Loveless, Ice Cold, So You Want to Talk About Race, and Lord of the Flies. Question 2 is the best sequel. So first for this is Hideaway by Penelope Douglas. This is book 2 in her Devil's Night series, and I really like this. I liked it much better than I did the first one even. This one focuses on Kai and Banks, and Banks was such a cool character, and I loved getting to know Kai better. It was like a dark romantic thriller almost, and there was so much happening, so many plot developments, not just with Kai and Banks, but with like this friendship circle in general. It was a page turner. I liked the romance. I liked the steam. This was a great sequel. Another sequel that I enjoyed was Exile by Shannon Messenger, and this is book 2 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. And in this one, it picks up where the first book left off, but we get introduced to this new character called Sylveni, who is like a unicorn Pegasus kind of character, and the main character Sophie gets to take care of Sylveni and like train her, and there's a lot of plot developments in this one. There are some really dark moments in this one, kind of edging on being maybe too dark for a middle grade audience almost, and I loved it. I had such a great time. You know, is this a perfect series? No, but it's so entertaining and it's so fun, and I find the characters quite lovable and interesting. So that's another sequel that I have enjoyed this year. Okay, number 3 is a new release that you haven't read this year that you want to. And I just pulled from the stack of library books I have checked out right now because I'm not great at keeping up with new releases. But this is one that came out this year, Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Malors. This is one I want to get to. I don't know much about it other than it's literary fiction. And it's kind of that sad girl fiction genre, which I eat it up. I am here for sad girl lit fic. But I'm not, I don't know much about this in terms of like plot or anything like that. I just know that people that I follow on BookTube who have similar tastes in books and lit fic as I do have loved this, and I love the cover. I love this like new trend right now of lit fic using art and painting. I mean, all book covers are art, but specifically using like paintings as book covers. Like, it just adds something so classy to it. I don't know. I love it. Question 4 is most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. And again, I'm not super good at following new releases. I usually just hear about the ones that I know of from like my favorite authors because I'll get like alerts about it on Goodreads. So, okay. Probably the one I'm anticipating the most this year is Listen to Me by Tess Gerritsen. It is the most recent installment in the Rizzoli and Isles series, which is like one of my all-time favorite book series. It is my favorite mystery thriller police procedural series out there for sure. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Soul Taken by Patricia Briggs. This is the next installment in the Mercy Thompson series that I've been reading. You've probably seen me talk about those series in previous videos if you've been watching me for a while. Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. This is book 2, following Amari and the Night Brothers, which I absolutely loved. It's a middle grade fantasy series, and I'm very excited for this one. I think a lot of you know what this series is. It's kind of all over BookTube, but if you have not read Amari and the Night Brothers, I highly recommend it, especially if you like middle grades and middle grades set in kind of a magical school setting. And then the last one is Nothing More to Tell by Karen M. McManus. Karen M. McManus is a YA thriller author, and her books are like popcorn to me. Like, I just eat them up. Like, they're high drama, they're messiness, they usually involve rich people, and they're just sheer entertaining, glorious fun. So I'm looking forward to reading her next book. Question 5 is The Biggest Disappointments. Women Eating by Claire Coda, and I was really sad about this. I won this in a giveaway hosted by Jan Agaton, and this book was a 2-star read for me. It's kind of a slice of life book where it's called a literary vampire novel. The main character in this is a vampire, and she's really struggling to find blood to eat, and it's just a story of her trying to figure out how to find blood and how to survive on her own. And I mean, it was just okay. What I liked most about it is the cover. Again, like a gorgeous painting. I think this one's by Caravaggio. Yes. So this painting is called Youth with a Basket of Fruit by Caravaggio from 1593. It's so gorgeous. The cover is absolutely perfect for what this book tried to accomplish, but it didn't execute. Like, I love the premise of this, and I love that it was like a new take on vampirism, but the writing just stayed so surface level and shallow. I just didn't get anything out of this book. So this was definitely a huge disappointment. Question 6 is your biggest surprise this year, and this is a book that I mentioned in my quarter year crisis video. If you haven't seen it, I'll link you to it up there. And my biggest surprise this year was actually a book called In Peace Lives Havoc by Amo Jones. And this is a dark romance about a mafia-run circus that kidnaps people to join the circus. And it's a love story between one of the kidnapped performers and one of the mafia brothers. And it's just so dang good. Like, there are some writing issues, like little typos and things like that, but I ignored those and I just focused on the story. And the story had like twists and turns, and it involves issues of like unreliable memory, which I absolutely love that theme. And I just loved that book. Like, I still think about that book, and I still think about the characters, and I definitely need to get to the next books in that series soon. Question 7 is a favorite new author, either debut or new to you. And first I have to go with Alice Oseman. Again, you know, this love list was my entry into the world of Alice Oseman, and I just adore her writing. I adore her character development so much. She creates such excellent tension and drama in her books that's believable and not like over the top, but just like perfectly executed. So Alice Oseman would be one. And then a second one would be Mona Awad, who wrote Bunny. And then she also wrote All's Well and some other ones. But I read Bunny for the first time. I read Bunny in June, and it was like a ride. Like, this book, I still don't quite know exactly what happened in this book. This book is just ripe for discussion, and I loved Mona Awad's writing style. Like, her writing is gorgeous. It's lyrical, it's poetic, but it is also dense in terms of the number of ideas that she's able to cram into a single sentence. Like, absolutely brilliant writing. Love her. The next question is your newest fictional crush. And one of my fictional crushes would have to be Benji from Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Beartown is a story about a hockey town, and Benji is one of the hockey players, and he's just such a cool character. Benji has a rough exterior, but he's a big softie on the inside, and he's very protective of the people in his life, both male and female and non-binary, and he's complex and he's deep, and he carries a lot of pain, but he doesn't let that pain affect the people he cares about. Like, he doesn't lash out at people necessarily in these really ways. He's more one to just withdraw. I loved him. I just wanted to give him a big hug and a snuggle and a kiss on the cheek and like tell him, you know, everything's gonna be fine. Another fictional crush is a character in This Poison Heart by Kaylin Byron, and the character is Marie. And Marie is like a magical character, and she is strong, she is gorgeous, she is smart, she is feisty, like, whew, my type of woman. Question 8, newest favorite character, and I have several. Okay, first is the Maynard from the Sookie Stackhouse series. She shows up in book 2, which is Living Dead in Dallas, and these are books by Charlene Harris. And the Maynard was such a cool, like, magical character I've never read about before. And this character was super dynamic and interesting and spooky. And I really liked that character a lot. I kind of am hoping that this character comes back in future books in the series. Next, I absolutely loved Rooney from Loveless by Alice Oseman. Rooney kind of gives me Lorelai Gilmore vibes in that she's super sociable, super outgoing, but she's also kind of vulnerable on the inside. Like, she puts up a little bit of a front, but she's ambitious, she's precocious, and she's hilarious. So I absolutely loved Rooney. From Exile by Shannon Messenger, I adored Sylvanie, which is the unicorn Pegasus character, the horse basically that Sophie gets to train. I thought Sylvanie had some really funny lines, and Of course I'm gonna love the horse. I mean. And then last, I have to give a shout out to Banks from Hideaway by Penelope Douglas. Banks made that book for me. One of my favorite parts, if not the best part of that book, was watching Banks evolve and watching Banks go from being like this hidden away, very closed off, hard outer shell person, and evolving into someone who knows her strength, knows her power, knows she deserves love, knows she deserves to be treated with respect, and refuses to accept anything less than that. And that evolution in Banks was just like, yes, so satisfying. All right, a book that made you cry. You're getting tired of hearing about this one. I know you are. But this book did make me cry, and I think it's because I identified with the character so deeply. Being asexual panromantic myself, reading about an asexual character, discovering her asexuality and her identity as an asexual person, and going through all of those difficult questions that we have to ask, like, am I going to be loveless forever kind of thing. It just really hit me at my core, and it made me cry. And then another book that made me cry this year was The Reason I Jump by Naoki Higashida. And I'll link you to the wrap-up video where I talk about this one up here. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it other than what made me cry reading this book wasn't the book itself, it was people's reactions to it. Question 11, a book that made you happy. I have two. The first one is The Hatmakers by Tamsin Merchant. This is a middle grade fantasy, and it is just silly, nonsensical, magical fun. It made me laugh out loud. It just made me so happy. Like just the silliness of it just made me happy. Made me feel like a kid again, and in a good way. And I had a blast with that one. The second book would be one that I read recently, and it's called Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kasulke. This book was hilarious. Oh my goodness. And I don't know if other people will find it as funny as I did, but I was laughing like every other page. It was just gloriously funny. And I put it on my Amazon wish list because I'm like, man, when I need a pick-me-up, I am picking up that book again. Question 12 is the most beautiful book that you've either bought or been gifted. And I bought myself this Poison Heart this year, and this was the Owl Crate edition. And Owl Crate editions are always stunningly beautiful. So like here's inside the dust jacket on the cover. Like it's got that beautiful printed rose on it and gold leaf. And then what I love about this one is the back side of the dust jacket is just this gorgeous artwork. And this is totally my vibe, totally cottagecore, plant-based beauty right there. So that would be the prettiest or most beautiful book that I have purchased this year. All right, and then the last question is books that you still need to read before the year is over. And I mean, all of them, right? But what I think I need to prioritize for the rest of this year is my anniversary recommendations. I'll leave you a link to that video up here. But last year, my friends recommended me books for my 2-year anniversary. I think it was 2 years. 2-year anniversary, might have been 1 year. Anyway, it was an anniversary, and they recommended some books for me, and I want to make sure to read all of those books this year. So that's all I'm gonna say for sure, that I want to make sure to prioritize, you know, the next 6 months or so. But really just all of them. Alright, that does it for my mid-year book freakout tag. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned down below? Do you have any recommendations for me based on my reading tastes that you are kind of sussing out here? Anything that you think I would love? If you just want to let me know that you're here, go ahead and leave me some sort of clock or time emoji, like a clock, a watch, etc., since we are running out of time in 2022 to read the books we need to read. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!